All right. Well, I mean, I wasn't going to not make a video about what is almost certainly going to be the biggest Bungie Destiny news dump of the year. Evie's here. I can talk at a normal volume. My wife's at work, so gonna do a late PM video here before dinner. And yeah, it's a lot, huh? um, Joe Blackburn, who is probably going to be the next game director after Luke Smith, once they kind of finish all this reshuffling they're doing, just wrote another massive state of the game post, kind of similar to how Luke Smith used to. Joe's is a little more organized, I'd say, than Luke Smith, filled with less anecdotes and more kind of just straight up facts about what's coming to the game and what's happening. This is, I don't know, it kind of feels like a Destiny national holiday online. Everybody seems to be pretty much celebrating all the stuff that was revealed in here. It's not like specific, they didn't unveil like new content like exactly, but they talked about the overall health of the game and various things they are changing. They did have to start with some bad news, which is that the Witch Queen is being delayed into, quote, early 2022. This is not like a huge surprise because they were already in a weird situation because Beyond Light had to be delayed because of the pandemic and working from home. So to get back on the old schedule, September, it would have had to be like a 9-month window to make the next big expansion, which that did not seem likely. So if it was going to be late holiday, that would be another kind of odd time, and I don't think they want to release necessarily like in late November, early December, when there's going to be all these other high-profile AAA games. So it's going to be, quote, early 2022, and I would guess the first couple of months, I'd say probably no later than March, hopefully February. Bungie also seems to indicate that they are planning on making that a regular thing, and they're going to move out of the fall window in general for their big content releases. This, I think, is kind of a holdover from the Activision schedule, where, of course, Activision, Mr. Big Corporation, wanted a holiday release, timed that way. Whereas, like, but no one's like buying like box copies of Destiny expansions for gifts for Christmas. I mean, some people are, I guess, but or a box copy with a code in it. I don't know how that even works. But I think Bungie benefits from having a late winter, early spring release because they will have next to no competition. I mean, look at what's the biggest game going on right now? Like the Outriders demo. Like, there's very little going on in these months, and that is because everyone kind of wants to jam their releases into the fall. And we've seen some major spring games usually because they're delayed out of the previous fall. But I think just planning to launch around that time period is probably a good idea for Destiny, even if it is going to mean a much longer waits for the next expansion than we're used to. I mean, it'll be close to 6 months off of what we normally are used to. I mean, it'll be like a year, 15 months away from Beyond Light. But again, it's video games. Like you can't be mad about delays really, because if it needs it, it needs it. And you're going to see a lot of this with a lot of projects this year, because even if COVID is like starting to maybe wind down and people are getting vaccinated and going back to work, all of the debt from last year is catching up now. And so you're going to see a lot of projects delayed, this kind of thing included. Also in this section, they confirmed that, I don't know, in order to fully realize their vision for the current saga of Destiny, which they call the Light and Dark saga, which began in Destiny 1, they're going to add another expansion after Lightfall, which is now, I guess, the 2023 expansion. It was 2022, but now that's not going to happen. That is not named or anything, but they implied that that would be the concluding chapter. And then the existence of, the first saga implies there will be a second saga of Destiny. Whether that is an entirely new game, like I kind of imagine it would be at that point. Like, we're talking 2, 3, 4 years down the line. I don't think they're just going to keep building on top of Destiny 2 forever for like a full decade. They will probably release a new game, whether that is called Destiny 3 or they just do some grand unified Destiny name. That would be the time for that. It also could imply all their multimedia projects coming to fruition. Long and short of it, I mean, we kind of learned this with the recent news about Bungie's expansion, but like they're banking on Destiny being popular and embraced by the community for a long time. Even as they start new IPs, Destiny is still going to be their flagship. It is going to probably consume most of their resources. So I think fans can be confident that Bungie is sticking with this series. Back in the day when it was Activision, they had a 10-year contract. Like that would be coming due pretty soon, and if it's not over already. And it's like 8 years. But that's not happening. So because they fully own the IP now, they can do whatever they want. Community's still engaged. Why would they stop making Destiny content? And why would they put down the thing that has allowed them to kind of balloon in growth the way they have? So that's good news. That's great news. And that kind of reinforces what we heard about earlier. Possibly the biggest news for the current state of the game, almost certainly the biggest news, is sunsetting is dead. Like, fully dead. I thought maybe they were going to like ease up on sunsetting and maybe let things last another season or two and push it back. They just killed it. It's dead. Anything, I think the rule is anything that is not currently sunset will now never be sunset. So anything you have right now is no longer going to be like have a max power cap and you can infuse it indefinitely. This section said that like they fundamentally like understood and got all the feedback that it does not feel good to earn rewards that have an expiration date. And even though they started this with the intention of balance, they are going to look for other ways to try and continue to balance the game rather than continually taking stuff away. And I've said this, I've said this a million times, but the way sunsetting was implemented, it put tons of pressure on needing constant new loot because every time there was a new season, they were taking, 20, 25 guns away in addition to all these armor sets. So people don't want to grind for things. People don't want to invest in things. Even if a year is a very long time and you will probably find something else that you like better in that time, it still doesn't feel good. And they recognize that and that they just fully sunsetting, which is what everyone's saying. This is a great move. I'm amazed they moved this fast. Sunsetting did not even last a year. It was like 2 seasons, really. Arrivals was an extended season, but like, it just... I knew something like this would happen. I knew they would change sunsetting. I did not think they would just kill it like as soon as next season. So that is fundamentally a huge change. And this is the ultimate kind of Bungie we're listening moment because they understand like, and they were able to reverse course even though they were kind of married to this concept and were planning a lot of things around it. But like I said this on Twitter, but like it feels like a weight is lifted off the game. And like now just nothing feels as oppressive. Like that bottom dollar you're grinding for, like, yeah, that is going to be worth the grind because it will not be sunset and it will not be taken away from you. So you could feel good about grinding 300 Gambit matches or whatever it takes to get the one you want. Also, there's a TWAB that should be going live right now about playlist activity drop rates, which I probably should have waited for before I filmed this. But there's enough in the state of the game to talk about besides that. So that's just a great move overall, and too late for my poor breach light. It missed it by a season. But the thing is now is they can, all the stuff that it was already sunset, they couldn't unsunset stuff because they told you it was safe to delete it. So people would be really mad if people got their stuff back that was stored in their vault that other people deleted. Like they didn't really have a choice, but they can reissue stuff now. So they could reissue all the sundial weapons, all the black armory weapons, things like that. And now the new version, you have to regrind it, but it won't be sunset now. So that's good and a way around it. I don't know. They didn't list any plans of when they're bringing back weapons, but obviously they're always bringing back weapons. So that will clearly happen at some point. They are also changing something that doesn't really bother me that much, but people are like really anti the current power grind and they find it exhausting. It's like it's 50 a season. And I think it goes pretty fast. Like at this point, doing almost anything in the game because of how drops work now, gap filling and how many powerfuls there are and primes and like pinnacles and like really random kind of easy places. Like the Exo challenge gives you a pinnacle. I don't think the power grind is that much, but I understand how people who play a lot more casually can find it oppressive. So they are kind of going back to the Season of Dawn thing where they only increased it by 10 per season. I think they'll increase it by more when there's future expansions, but per season, like when it's just season to season, they're going to do just raising it 10. So you're essentially only doing the pinnacle grind. I don't know if I love that, but I think most people are going to celebrate it because it'll mean you can just jump right into activities instead of grinding another 50 power to be able to do the same level of Nightfall again. Fundamentally, I mean, the power grind isn't that fun. It's more about chasing the loot, so I understand why they're easing back on this. It's not something that really bothered me, but I know people are very excited about this, so I'll be curious to see how it works in practice and whether the game is still. I think if they just have enough loot and enough things to farm and go for, it'll be fine, and enough actual content. So I'm not too worried about losing the power grind. I think it's fine. It'll be different when there's expansions and new raids and stuff, but we'll see how it works. And there is a big section on PvP. As you know, I'm not a PvP main, but there was no way they were going to get through a state of the game without finally talking about PvP. They didn't mention some things, like they didn't really talk about like why there's no new maps and why there's, it's just not being focused on. But they did address a number of the most common complaints about PvP. They are changing 3-peaking, so you cannot emote during like hyper competitive matches, which I assume is trials and maybe the ranked playlist or whatever it's called now, survival. I don't even remember. So you can't 3-peak anymore. They are doubling their player security thing and like beefing up their anti-cheat and like doing all these security things to prevent cheaters from hopping in. And they listed a bunch of PvP changes to stasis to make it feel less oppressive and dominant. And they talked about buffing some of the other subclasses to be more in line with stasis. So they're just going to try and even the sandbox out so they don't have to like remove stasis from PvP, and that they can just do a bunch of minor changes to make things less oppressive. Like they mentioned, nerfing the damage resistive glacial quake and like really obvious things that need to be changed. So we'll see what happens with that. They also talked about again, they didn't talk about maps or anything, and I don't think Gambit was mentioned at all in this. But they said that they are going to work on trials to make it more rewarding and more open to a wider player pool. And that includes things like making people not just want to automatically reset their card if they get a loss, because that negates your flawless run. And also making it easier for more people to get to 3 wins and 5 wins for more rewards. I don't know about things like tokens on loss or, rewards on loss and things like that, but I don't know. Clearly, they kind of understand the basics of what's wrong with the Trials player pool at this point, and then they said they're going to do that with Iron Banner later. I think the trial stuff may happen in time for next season, season 14, but we'll see. And I wrote a whole thing about Iron Banner and like how that's stuck in the Dark Ages, so who knows when that'll change. But that's something they're working on, and I guess we'll see what happens with all these other changes too. The PvP section's long. You probably want to read that in detail. Then they went to Vault of Glass, which is coming back next season, which I kind of thought would happen. And that is going to have a world's first raid race, which is controversial because some people have run it a million times already and some people have never run it because it's a reprised raid. So, I don't know. I don't think it's that controversial. Like, who cares? Like, are you not a real raid race winner if you get the Vault of Glass belt? Like, who cares? Like, I'm sure there's like 30 people that care in the whole game. So I will watch it day one. I want to see how it is and see what the change and stuff. They talked about doing a master mode for it, not this season or not next season, but like in a future season. It implies to me that they might start kind of doing hard modes of raids again. And that's something people have been wanting because it's very weird to have like Grandmaster Nightfalls be the hardest thing in the game, where like raids like DSC is kind of a breeze now, like, and the only challenge really are the mechanics, not like any of the combat or anything like that. So I think that's something people were hoping to see. We didn't really get any other Vault of Glass teasers about like, is it integrated into the story? Like, is all the loot coming back? Stuff like that. So we'll see how they roll that out. In terms of loot, Ada 1 is coming back to the tower, and she is going to be our cosmetic transmog vendor. And she is going to have a new currency that she gives you through doing a quest that I'm sure will involve checking back in with her no less than 5 times per quest. And that currency will be what allows you to transmog any piece of armor. And they even show, blues and greens in the list here to be able to use it. I assume it's per piece, not per set. I think that's how it works. Because, not everyone has every piece from every set. And you can also buy whatever that new currency is. The currency is not Bright Dust, but you can buy whatever the transmog currency is for silver if you don't want to do whatever grinding you're supposed to do to get that currency. which I don't know. I'm sure people will complain about that to some degree, but this is kind of like the ultimate cosmetic of cosmetic things. So I think if there's a path that is not just like horribly obnoxious for you to earn it in game just through grinding, I don't see a problem with selling that thing for silver. And like, Lord knows Bungie needs non-controversial revenue streams, and they could do a lot worse than that. So since it doesn't cost bright dust, since that's not like the free alternative, I think this is fine. We'll see how it works in practice, but it sounds fine. I'll put it that way. Most important thing in this section, shaders are no longer consumable. They are permanent unlocks. I could not be more happy about this news because this is something I have been pulling for literally, I think since the beta of Destiny 2. I'm like, why are shaders consumable now? And like once upon a time, it seemed like it was like a ploy to get more people to buy stuff in Eververse, and it was like a incentive to run the raid multiple times so you get more shader drops. And then they introduced collections where you could pull infinite amounts of shaders from them. So that negated the entire thing. And ever since, we've been waiting for this to happen, and it's happening. So I could not be more happy about this. I'm curious how the display will look because right now you can see 50 shaders, and even that's kind of a lot to go through. So I'm hoping that there's some sort of easier way to sort through them or mark your favorites or things like that when it comes to the system. But outside of sunsetting, I think this is my favorite piece of news in the entire list here. So I was very happy to see that. They end with some quick things. Everyone's complaining that Ikora has not done anything in a very long time since Shadowkeep, but everyone assumed that Gina Torres, the actress, is busy. But they said she'll be doing things in season 14 and will have a very big role in Shadowkeep. So I guess Gina Torres either freed up her schedule or they're recasting her. Like they have recast a lot of people. So we'll see what happens there. I think it'll be her. I don't think they'll recast her, but we'll see. They talked about stasis, not just in terms of nerfs, but it is becoming more of a fully fleshed out damage type. They are going to add stasis energy and power weapons, which I have to assume means enemies will get stasis shields, as in, otherwise what's the point? I don't know if these stasis weapons will like do anything like slow people or whatever. Like I don't think they would because that's not currently how any elemental damage works, but I don't know, maybe they're changing the whole elemental system, but I don't think we can extract that from this yet. They did not really tease any new subclass, any new darkness subclass for Witch Queen. Everyone thinks there's going to be some sort of poison decay subclass there. But I mean, they pretty much outright said that they're going to do more darkness subclasses, but that just wasn't teased here at all. It doesn't mean it's not happening, but we'll see. And finally, they said that more Gilded titles are coming. And they got the feedback that it makes no sense to reset everyone's Gilded title every season. So it will, if you guild it for that season, it will show up with the past number of times you have gilded it before. So there is a reason to try and grind out whatever title you care about, every season, because it'll show up with a little number by it, and everyone will think you're very cool. And that is everything from the state of the game. That's not everything, but it is the vast majority of the important points. I will trade a Witch Queen delay for all of this other stuff. The news about sunsetting, that alone, like between that and the power grind are the things I see people talking about the most. And it just really feels like it's breathed new life into the game. And I've seen a number of people saying like, okay, like this is going to get me to come back, or like this is going to make me, be okay with grinding for this or that. And like it's overwhelmingly positive from the community based on what we're seeing here. And a lot of the stuff, I mean, the sunsetting thing starts now because even though nothing is like being patched in, just the psychological like fact that that you can invest in things and they're not going to be trashed is very gratifying. And that fundamentally kind of just changes how you play the game and how you look at loot. So it doesn't even have to be patched in. And this is always the problem with sunsetting, is because it was like this, even if in practice, like you were probably going to switch your loadout and not use 95% of your weapons indefinitely, like it just felt bad. Now it feels good because it's not there anymore. So, you don't know what you got till it's gone. And we didn't know, how good we had it before sunsetting until they implemented it and it was not good. And it really screwed everything up. Now it's gone, and hopefully we can avoid another situation like that. So that's kind of the rundown and kind of my thoughts on things. I think this is one of the best news dumps / rundowns I've seen. Gives me hope for both the short-term and long-term future of the game. and something I will obviously continue to invest in. And Destiny is going to be, even if you see this trend of loot shooters kind of petering out and new ones arriving and failing and old ones dying like Anthem, and it's going to be around indefinitely. Like it is their flagship. It is their pride and joy. And even if they start introducing new IPs, like it's still going to be a focus for them. And I think they're going to keep trying to grow the player base in different ways and make it more accessible for everyone, while also keeping the hardcore engaged, the eternal balance. And I think everything listed here is a good mixture of that. And I don't know, I was like genuinely happy just going down this blog post and reading all this stuff after the Witch Queen delay. And it's nice to feel like that, because it's been a long time since we've gotten a news dump like that with that much positivity and things that kind of impact the game both immediately and down the road. So I'm gonna go see if the 12 went up and see what's going on with bottom dollar drop rates. I think it's gonna be light. Besides that, I mean, how can you follow up this like monstrosity of a document? I'm gonna go play some more Outriders in different classes, do some Iron Banner maybe. All the more Outriders videos in the coming week or so. That game's growing on me. I was a little negative in my first impressions, but I think it's better on console, honestly. And I like the Geomancer. I don't know what it's called. Whatever that class is, better than the first one I picked. So we'll see. I'll have more thoughts on that soon. It's not a Destiny killer. It was never supposed to be a Destiny killer. But yeah, that's where we're at. Sorry this is long, but that was a very long document. So didn't really have a choice but to go through most of it. Yeah, this is on the later side, but thanks for watching. If you caught this, maybe it's the next day by now, but yeah, I will see you next time. And for, the next few years, at least, if Destiny lives forever like it's apparently supposed to. All right, see ya.